I hate feeling so bloated all the time. If I could just take a pill so I'd never have to eat again, I would. Welcome back to the Holistic Trauma Coach podcast. And today we're talking about something that you may not be expecting. Today we're talking about digestive issues. I know, this might feel a little strange for a trauma podcast. You might be thinking, what does my trauma have anything to do with my digestion? And also, how did she know I had digestive issues? Well, my friend, that is exactly what we'll be exploring today. Because while all the nutrition and functional health and doctor podcasts have a lot of helpful info for our epidemic of chronic digestive issues, one major factor in how our guts feel is getting hardly any attention. You guessed it, chronic stress and trauma. Before we get too deep, let's just set the groundwork here, because this episode is going to speak directly to the kind of people who usually end up in my orbit. People looking for help with their emotional experiences only to be surprised to learn how much of their bodily discomfort is actually a part of their trauma story. By the time they land in a conversation with me, they've already been on the full digestive healing merry-go-round. They've tried eliminating inflammatory foods from their diets. Maybe they've gone lactose-free. Maybe they're gluten-free. Maybe they've sworn off seed oils or hydrogenated oils or processed sugar. They've had all the conversations with their doctors about what they should or shouldn't eat, and maybe even tried some medications or other protocols. They have filled their cabinets with every supplement you can think of: saffron, turmeric, spirulina, digestive enzymes, probiotics, you name it, they have tried it. And many of them are carrying diagnoses like IBS, or more frustratingly, just, quote, mystery tummy issues. You know what I'm talking about. The ones where everything seems to hurt your stomach. And it feels like no matter what you eat, you spend the rest of the day feeling bloated, constipated, or with bouts of diarrhea. I meet people who are eating the most strict, painstakingly careful diets you can imagine, not because they're trying to be trendy, but because they are desperate for comfort. They just want to not feel bloated all the time, to not feel sick after every damn meal, and to not dread the entire experience of eating. And on top of all that discomfort and exhaustion from trying so hard, they're carrying this additional layer of shame, this quiet but heavy belief that somehow their struggle with digestion is a moral failing. Like they aren't disciplined enough, like they are not healthy enough, like they are doing it wrong. Now, let me say this loud and clear. Nothing could be further from the truth. I see how hard you're trying. I see how deeply you care about your health and your comfort, and I see how exhausting this is for you. And before we go any further, I want to make something abundantly plain. I completely understand how much digestion can be impacted by food itself. Yes. By genetics. Yes. By anatomical differences, of course. In fact, I didn't know that I had celiac disease until I was in my 30s. And when I finally figured that out, a whole layer of digestive issues just disappeared practically overnight. So yes, sometimes there are medical conditions that absolutely contribute to digestive distress. And those are real and important things to address. But that's not my specialty. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I want to talk about the rest of the story. And that's where my work comes in. That's the piece that almost everyone is missing from this conversation. The emotional piece, the chronic stress piece, the trauma piece. When we separate our emotional experiences from our bodies, we act like stress and trauma are just mental issues, while our digestion is a physical issue. But nothing could be further from the truth. We aren't just meat machines that need a tune-up or a different kind of fuel. We are organisms. We are whole entire beings. And part of our organism is our nervous system experience, the conductor of both our emotional and physical lives. And nothing, I repeat, nothing happens in your digestive process without the orchestration of your nervous system. It manages your digestive enzymes. It manages the muscles that move food through your gut. It manages the hormones that regulate your hunger and fullness cues. So when you're stuck in chronic stress or your nervous system is carrying unresolved trauma, your digestion is going to feel it. Trauma is not just some big dramatic event. In fact, most of the traumas that stay trapped in our bodies are subtle, chronic, ongoing stresses that wire our nervous system to stay in survival mode. So today's conversation is about shining a light on all of this. Why your chronic stress and trauma history might be at the root of your digestive struggles. How your body is actually not betraying you. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do under stress. And why understanding this connection can help you stop blaming yourself and actually help orient you towards what can really help end your chronic discomfort. Let's pause for just a moment though. If you're listening to this and feeling seen for the first time, if no one has ever helped you connect the dots between your gut issues and your history of stress, trauma, or overwhelm, I want you to know there's a place for you to start. That's why I created my free online healing program, so that you don't have to do this alone, and so you can begin building that connection with your body in a safe and gentle way. Join me anytime in the free online healing program at theholistictraumacoach.com/free. All right, let's get into the good stuff. If you've been hanging out with me for a while, you already know I talk about the nervous system in pretty much every single episode because honestly, it's the foundation to everything I do as a holistic trauma coach. So let's start by understanding what our nervous system even is. Because here's the thing. These days, I hear a lot of people talk about the nervous system almost like it's this vague spiritual concept, like it's this kind of invisible energy or Jedi Force ghost thing floating inside of you. But the cool thing is that we aren't entering the ethereal territory here. When we're talking about the nervous system, we're talking about literal, physical, anatomical sections of our body. It's made up of your brain, your brainstem, your spinal cord, and all of those peripheral nerves that branch out and weave through every nook and cranny of your body. It's this massive, intricate network that's managing an unbelievable number of processes, 24/7, 365, most of which you don't even consciously feel or think about. And this is the fundamental understanding we need to have about it, that the primary function of your nervous system, like its number one job above everything else, is to keep you alive. That's it. That's the whole game. So that one day you can grow up and pass along your genetics and continue the evolution of the species. How romantic. Everything else the nervous system does, all in service of that one goal, survival. So when we look at digestion through this lens, things start to click. Digestion isn't some isolated, separate function your body is performing over there, while your emotions are happening over here. Digestion is deeply entwined with your survival response. In fact, your autonomic nervous system is the boss of your digestion. Full stop. You have zero conscious control of any of your digestive functions. At all times, your autonomic nervous system is sensing where the food is in your body, determining how much digestive fluid you need to break down that food, stimulating the smooth muscle tissue that moves your food along, opening and closing your sphincters to keep things moving in the right direction. It's even influencing how you feel about food, hunger, fullness, nausea, cravings. But here's where things get really interesting and a little bit tricky. The nervous system isn't just running your digestion on autopilot. It doesn't pre-program your digestion to be working at a constant rate and pattern. Rather, it's constantly adjusting the speed, priority, and resources allocated to digestion based on what else it's got going on. Specifically, whether you're safe or in danger. So let's take this to a mountain lion metaphor. You knew we were going there, right? Picture this. I'm out on a hike here on the Alpine foothills, which are gorgeous, by the way. And let's just say I happen to stumble into the path of a mama cougar. Very unlikely occurrence, but just imagine with me here. She's stalking me. She sees me as a potential threat to her cubs. Now, in this moment, what do you think my nervous system cares most about? Is it focused on digesting the sandwich I ate earlier? Abso-fucking-lutely not. It is focused on keeping me alive. So what does it do? Immediately, it starts redirecting energy away from the non-essential processes, considering the situation I am in. And digestion is at the top of the chopping block list. All the energy that would have gone into digesting my food is now getting sent to my arms and my legs so that I can run away or fight to escape. My heart rate increases, my blood pressure rises, my muscles tense, ready to move fast, and my digestion, it just ain't happening. Now let's say this whole situation goes sideways. I can't escape, the cougar attacks, and now I'm badly injured. At this point, my nervous system recognizes that fighting or fleeing is no longer an option. So it shifts. It shifts into a whole different survival mode. Shutdown. This is like putting your computer on sleep mode. It numbs me out, slows everything way down, reduces my energy consumption, just barely keeping the lights on while I wait for help to arrive or for the danger to pass. In this shutdown state, digestion slows down even more. It basically comes to a crawl because in this moment, my nervous system doesn't care about processing food. It's focused on minimizing pain, preserving as much energy as possible, and keeping me just alive so that maybe if the cougar walks away, I can get up and seek help later. This is the brilliance of our nervous systems. They are constantly making these on-the-fly adjustments to all of our body's functions to keep us safe, no matter what scenario we find ourselves in. And you don't have to be out in the wild facing down a predator for your nervous system to react this way. Because on the evolutionary timeline, our modern lifestyle, with its consistent notifications, work stress, social media overwhelm, family dynamics, financial pressures, all of that is brand new. Your nervous system hasn't evolved. It hasn't had time to evolve to differentiate between an actual mountain lion and a passive-aggressive text from your boss, or your kid screaming, or your partner giving you the silent treatment, or a parent rejecting you emotionally when you need it the most. It interprets all of these as potential threats to your survival, especially if you grew up in an environment where your safety, belonging, or attachment to your caregivers felt fragile or unreliable. So while you might not literally be running from a cougar every day, your nervous system might still be acting like there's danger all around you because that's what it learned to do. And what happens when your nervous system is stuck in a chronic state of fight, flight, or shutdown? You guessed it. Digestion takes a back seat, sometimes for good. It stays deprioritized. It stays crawling at a snail's pace for years, for some of you, for decades. And this is why you can, quote, eat clean and take all the right supplements and still feel awful. In this scenario, the issue isn't just what you're putting in your body. It's whether your body's machinery for processing that food is even turned on. and functioning properly in the first place. Understanding this isn't just about being aware. It's about starting to reorient your sights on what your body really needs in order to feel well. It's about recognizing that your body isn't malfunctioning and it isn't betraying you. It's actually trying really, really hard to keep you alive in an environment it perceives as unsafe. That's the reality most people never hear when they're sitting in their doctor's office talking about bloating, food sensitivities, or IBS. But it's so critical. Because when we understand this, we can start to work with our bodies, not just by tweaking what we put in them, but by turning back on the systems we need for healthy digestion to happen in the first place, by working directly with the nervous system. This is especially true if your nervous system was built in the environment of painful childhood experiences like neglect, criticism, rejection, humiliation, abandonment, or violence. For example, maybe you had a hypercritical parent growing up, a caregiver who never acknowledged your accomplishments, who publicly humiliated you at family gatherings, who made you feel like you couldn't do anything right. You might look back and say, well, they didn't hit me, right? But your nervous system registered that constant criticism and rejection as a serious threat to your survival. Because as children, we depend on our caregivers for everything: safety, food, shelter, love, belonging. When that bond feels threatened, our nervous system reacts as if we are in critical danger, because we are. So what happens when you grow up in an environment like that? Your nervous system gets trained to stay on high alert, to constantly scan for danger, anticipate rejection, prepare for the next attack. And over time, this creates a baseline status of chronic stress, even when no immediate danger is present, which means digestion stays on sleep mode. You might not consciously feel stressed all the time, but under the surface, your nervous system is running a survival program that keeps your digestive system suppressed and sluggish. If your nervous system is stuck in a chronic survival state, it's still going to keep pulling resources away from digestion, because your body isn't prioritizing wellness or optimization or balance when it thinks you're under threat. It's prioritizing survival. There is not a superfood on planet Earth that can fix a digestive system that isn't allowed to function. In fact, the world-renowned Dr. Mark Hyman, a functional health MD and author of dozens of best-selling books about using food for healing, is quoted as saying, quote, "A regulated nervous system is one of the strongest foundations for healing. You can't detox, digest, repair, or reproduce in fight or flight. Feeling safe really is a biological requirement." Your nervous system is the boss, guys, and until it feels safe, digestion is going to stay compromised. All right, now that we've unpacked how the nervous system impacts digestion under threat, let's take a look at another unexpected player in the digestive issue puzzle: tension patterns. But first, are you listening and thinking, okay, but how do I actually do this? That's what my live online group classes are for. A gentle space where you can practice nervous system regulation, learn body-based tools, and start feeling safer in your own skin. Find your next favorite class today with me at theholistictraumacoach.com/class. Now back to the episode. So chronic stress and trauma impact the very ways your body holds itself, your posture, your movement, your breath, and ultimately your gut function. Stress, fear, and trauma don't just live in your thoughts. They live in your tissues. When you're under threat, your body responds automatically with protective reflexes. These are automatic protective tension patterns. Think about what happens when you get startled. Let's say you're sitting on a park bench, totally relaxed, and suddenly a kid sneaks up behind you and shouts. your body jumps, right? You contract. Your head pulls down in like a turtle shape and your shoulders hunch up to protect your neck. Your chest caves in. You instinctively pull your knees towards your chest, curling in, shrinking down, tightening everything to protect the soft, vulnerable parts of your body. This is a perfectly natural, instinctual reaction. And the proof is in the pudding. It's not like you pulled in like that because you were truly frightened that this small playground child was going to disembowel you. You are simply performing a deeply rooted impulse pattern of protection. It's your body bracing for impact, pulling in to shield your organs, preparing to absorb a blow, getting small to minimize your target size. And if you're living in a state of chronic stress, or if you grew up in an environment where you were consistently overwhelmed, criticized, or rejected, that contraction doesn't just happen for a moment and then release. Instead, your body holds that pattern. Your muscles, your posture, your breathing, they all start to reflect this chronic, pulled-in shape. You might find yourself perpetually hunched forward with rounded shoulders and a collapsed chest. You might unconsciously tighten your abdomen or clench your jaw, hold your breath, restrict your movements. All of this, naturally, instinctively, in service of bracing, guarding, protecting. And this matters for digestion a lot because digestion isn't just a passive process happening somewhere inside of you, right? Much of your digestive process actually depends on movement. Let's talk about breathing first. This is actually one of the sneakiest ways that stress impacts your digestion without you even realizing it. When we're in survival mode, your breathing tends to become shallow. You stop breathing deeply down into your belly, and instead you breathe high up in your chest and towards your collarbones. Why? Because deep breathing signals relaxation. It creates more connection with your body. And if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, it's not going to allow you to soften like that. And when your breath becomes shallow, something really important stops happening. Your diaphragm stops moving properly. Now, the diaphragm is this gigantic dome-shaped muscle that sits at the bottom of your rib cage. And when you breathe deeply, your diaphragm moves up and down like a bellows. And in doing so, it gently massages your digestive organs, supporting that wave-like muscle contraction that moves your food through your intestines. So when your breathing becomes shallow and your diaphragm stops moving fully, your gut loses that natural massage. The digestive process slows down, and now your intestines have to work harder than ever to move things along. You might experience bloating, constipation, or other digestive discomfort, not necessarily because of what you ate, but because your diaphragm isn't able to assist your digestion anymore. Oh, but things get so much deeper. Now let's talk about your connective tissue, your fascia. And in order to explain this, I'm going to invite you to visualize an orange. You peel off the skin of the orange, and what do you see underneath? That white, stringy stuff that wraps around the entire fruit. Then you pull the orange apart into wedges, and you see the same white stuff between each of the wedges. And then you break a wedge open and you look inside, and even the tiny juice-filled cells are surrounded by that same white material. This is a really great metaphor for how your body is built with fascia. Inside your body, every single structure, every organ, every muscle, every cell is wrapped in this incredible web of connective tissue called fascia. Fascia isn't just the stuff that keeps us together. It's also a communication network. It's through your fascia that fluids move, that electricity travels, that sensations are conducted throughout your body. In fact, recent research has shown that we likely have more nerve endings in our fascia than we do in our muscles. It is the organ that allows all the different parts of your body to communicate and coordinate with one another. And what we're just now beginning to understand is that fascia needs movement to stay healthy. When you move your body regularly, when you stretch, dance, twist, breathe deeply, walk, flow, your fascia stays soft, pliable, hydrated. We aren't talking about exercise per se. We're talking about that 360 degrees of movement in all the nooks and crannies of your body. When we give our bodies this regular movement, our fascia functions beautifully as this really silky, flexible, slippery network, allowing everything inside of you to slide, glide, and communicate efficiently. But when you're stuck in patterns of tension due to chronic stress or trauma, your fascia starts to seize up. It loses hydration. It stiffens. It becomes less pliable. It's like taffy that's gone hard. And when that happens, it literally restricts movement in your body, including your digestive organs. Your intestines aren't rigid tubes. They're dynamic, muscular organs that depend on being able to squeeze and release to move the food along. So if your fascia is tight, dehydrated, sticky, it starts acting like a shrink wrap around your gut, preventing it from really moving the way it's supposed to, moving freely. A nervous system that is afraid for our safety keeps us stuck in that instinctive posture we made after getting startled by the kid at the park. Frozen, tense, bracing, preventing us from providing ourselves with that three-dimensional movement we need to keep this fascia soft. This is why movement matters, not as a punishment, not as exercise for weight loss, but a way to nourish and support your fascial network, to restore pliability, to soften these holding patterns so that your digestive organs can begin to move freely again. It's also why working with the body gently through somatic practices, breath work, mindful movement is such a vital part of trauma healing, especially when we're talking about digestive issues, when those are part of your symptom picture. Okay, before we keep going, let's take a moment together. Because if you're listening to this and starting to feel a little overwhelmed, maybe what I'm saying is stirring something up, or maybe you're starting to notice some sensations in your body that you hadn't noticed before, that's okay. This is your invitation to pause. You can literally hit pause on the episode if you need to. Go grab a glass of cold water. That's a beautiful way to ground yourself. Or if you're going to stay with me right now, just gently notice where your body is. Feel those feet on the floor. Really check in and see if you can let them get heavy for a second, like your feet are anchoring you right here, right now. Maybe take a second to see if you can unclench your jaw or soften your shoulders, even if it's just a tiny bit. And let's take a breath together. Doesn't need to be a big one, just your next breath. Taking it in and out. There's nothing you need to fix in this moment. You're here, you're listening, and that's more than enough. You can always pause me and come back when you're ready. All right, back at it when you're ready. We have one final path to explore here, the way chronic stress and trauma separate you from your body's cues. This is a universal experience of trauma in some degree. Here's what happens. When you're living in a body that has been exposed to chronic stress, pain, or fear, especially from a young age, your nervous system develops a way to protect you from feeling overwhelmed. And one of the most effective ways it can do this is by turning down the volume on your internal sensations, like way down. Sometimes so far down it's nearly on mute. Because think about it. If your body is constantly under stress, it would be too much for you to feel every heartbeat, every turn of your stomach, every stress signal coming from your system. So your body adapts by creating distance, by muting the sensory feedback you get from inside. This is intended as a short-term solution. But as chronic stress continues, you gradually become more and more disconnected from your body's cues. You struggle to feel when you're hungry. You can't sense when you're full, maybe until you feel painfully overfull. You don't notice gentle cravings for nourishing, supportive foods. Every subtle sensation becomes surprisingly out of reach. And what breaks through? Only the extremes. The greasiest, sweetest, or saltiest foods, because those extreme sensory inputs can finally penetrate the numbness and help you feel some sort of connection. This isn't about you being weak or indulgent or gluttonous, lazy, or lacking self-control. No. This is your nervous system trying to create some kind of connection with your body in a landscape where subtlety has been lost. And in a digestive landscape without subtlety, it can be really challenging to feel what is actually working for your body and what isn't. We can't tell what protocols are helping when we are numb to the process that's happening inside of us. The work here is reestablishing enough safety in your body in order to hear the conversation your body is trying to have with you, even when that conversation is being drowned out by decades of survival programming. The way forward isn't about punishment or perfection. It's not about restriction or deprivation. It's about gently, compassionately rebuilding trust and connection with your body so that over time you can start to hear and respond to those subtle cues again. That's when your relationship with food starts to shift naturally. That's when your digestion can start to feel more reliable. That's when your body starts to come back online. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're creating the conditions for healing and regulation. And that's exactly what we're doing here together. Alrighty, my friend, we've covered a lot today. We've talked about how your nervous system deprioritizes digestion when it perceives threat. We've looked at how trauma and chronic stress shape your posture, your breath, and your connective tissue, literally creating patterns in your body that make digestion harder. And we've explored how chronic stress and trauma disconnect you from your body's internal cues, leaving you feeling like you can only hear your body when it's shouting through the cravings for intense foods or when you're already in distress. So here's where I want to land today. This isn't your fault. This is not a moral failing. And despite all the doctor's visits, something can be done about your discomfort. This episode isn't here to give you a quick fix. I'm not going to hand you a 3-step meal plan or tell you to go buy a probiotic or eliminate a food group because you've already done all that and you're still struggling. Instead, I'm offering this episode as a perspective shift. I want you to understand what's really happening under the surface so that you can stop blaming yourself and stop feeling like you're swimming against the current. Because when you understand that your body isn't betraying you, that it's actually working its best under the tough circumstances it found itself in, you can approach your healing process oriented to the root of the problem. Imagine how much easier it would be to experiment with dietary changes if your nervous system actually felt safe enough to give you clear feedback. Imagine how much simpler it would be to notice what foods support your body if you were able to tune in to your hunger cues and fullness cues with clarity. Imagine how much less exhausting it would be to work on your health if you weren't starting every day from a place of survival mode. This is why healing your relationship with your gut isn't just about food. It's about learning to regulate your nervous system. It's about learning to soften those chronic tension patterns. It's about gently rebuilding trust and communication with your body so that digestion can finally come back online in the way it's meant to. And no matter how long you've been struggling, no matter how many diets you've tried, no matter how frustrated or hopeless you might feel, this is possible. Because your body's capacity for healing is still there. Your nervous system can relearn safety. You can connect with your body's cues. You can rebuild that relationship gently, slowly, sustainably. You don't have to force it. You don't have to fix yourself. You just have to meet yourself with compassion and start creating the conditions that allow your body to do what it knows how to do: heal. Thank you so much for going on this journey with me. You are never alone in this. Take care of yourself, my dear, and until next time. One final note. Are you listening and feeling like you need a softer place to land between episodes? That's exactly why I write my soft landing email, to give you gentle guidance, helpful somatic insights, and simple body first practices right in your inbox so you can keep this work alive in your everyday life. No spam, no perfectionism, just support for your nervous system at your own pace. You can subscribe at any time at theholistictraumacoach.com/email.